السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وكذا لو أثبتنا أن ترتب الحكم
Okay,
على
inshallah,
اسم.
I'll read, I'll give you a break today. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم. رب اشرح لنا صدورنا ويسر لنا أمورنا واحلل عقدة من ألسنتنا يفقهوا قولنا. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وارزقنا فهمه. اللهم ألهمنا لمراشي أمورنا ونعوذ بك من شرور أنفسنا. اللهم اجعلنا من ورثة علم نبيك صلى الله عليه وسلم راسخين في العلم المتحققين العاملين الناجين في الدارين آمين. So we continue with the discussion on the different type of ijma, known as ijma, that ijma which takes place within the madhab. Either although there are two different masail, but the mansha, the basis of both those masail are one, meaning the usool from which both those masail or more stem from is one. Then he said, كذا لو أثبتنا أن ترتب الحكم على اسم موصوف بصفة لا يوجب تعليق الحكم به. It's also been discussed before in Bab al-Bayan that similarly, if we have established the principle that a hukam will only become the hukam which is based upon a mawsoof of a sifat, on a particular adjective of a sifat, then this will not necessitate that hukam depends upon that sifat. Right? So if you have in the Quran, for example, Allah Ta'ala says something and the sifat, for example, what you call فتح رقبة مؤمنة understand? Then it is not necessary that that sifat which is attached to it, understand, is dependent upon the hukam coming into place. Okay? For example, كنا تولى الحرة لا يمنع جزاء نكاح الأمة. For example, having the ability to marry a free woman, same example I gave before, will not prevent the permissibility of getting married to a slave girl. Again, what is the ayat again? ومن لم يستطع منكم طولا أن ينكح المحصنات المؤمنات فمما ملكت أيمانكم. That if any one of you is unable to get married to a muhsan lady, a muhsan free lady, then he let him get married to a slave. So we say that just because Allah Ta'ala has mentioned the marriage to a Muslim free woman first, does not necessitate that if a person does have that ability, he cannot marry a slave girl instead. Yes, what we do say, if he's already married to a free woman, then he can't get married to a slave or a second wife for a different reason. But if he has the ability to get married to a free woman, and he doesn't do so, but he gets married to a bondswoman, a concubine, that will be fine. It will be permissible. The Quran is not coming to stop a person from doing so. إذ صح بالنقل السلف أن الشافعي رحمه الله فرع مسائل التولى الحرة على هذا الأصل. Because it is correctly reported from the previous scholars, Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, he has expected the ruling or the masala of the ability of running a free woman upon this particular asal, upon this particular usul, that if there is a sifat connected to a mawsuf, if a sentence or a word has a sifat attached to it, then the hukam will only come into being if that sifat is found, otherwise not. Okay, so فَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ مِنْكُمْ طَوْلًا. So only if you're unable to marry a free woman, then only will you be allowed to marry a bondswoman, a concubine. فلو أثبتنا جواز نكاح الأمة المؤمنة ما أتوا جواز نكاح الأمة الكتابية بهذا الأصل. The second masala comes out from there. We've affected from there. We've derived from there. That once we have established the permissibility of marrying a free woman, a bondswoman, or a Muslim bondswoman, despite having the ability to marry a free woman, it then is permissible for you in the same manner to marry a bondswoman who was a kitabiyah, was Ahl Kitab, because of this asl. فمن لم يستطع منكم طولا أن ينكح المحصنات المؤمنات فمما ملكت أيمانكم من فتياتكم المؤمنات. So فتياتكم المؤمنات comes in موصوف صفة. So we say that the صفة doesn't necessitate that the hukam is connected to the صفة as well. Okay?
Sure.
Okay, so basically that's the last of that one. Yeah. That وعلى هذا مثال مما ذكرنا فيما سبق. And based upon this are many other examples of which we've mentioned before, meaning in the previous lesson and so forth. Okay, so there are many other examples like this, where there are many masail derived and extracted from one asal. So this indicates towards what? Ijma, because none of the ulama within the madhab have differentiated and said, no, that this masail is different to that masail, is different to that masail. They all agree that these masail belong to one class and one group. Why? Because they all follow under the same usul and principle. What is that usul and principle? That what you call that preventing a person from a permissible act, from an otherwise permissible act in the Sharia has prevented us, prohibited us from carrying out a Shari'i act, an action which is normally sanctioned by the Sharia, and that indicates towards its permissibility. Okay, so it all belongs to that Messiah, all belongs to that class of usul. Okay?
Sure.
وَنَذِيرُ الثَّانِي, the example of the second one is where you have two different masail which come from two different usul. So obviously you cannot say because one is like this, the other one must also be like that. It doesn't make sense. He just mentioned this, by the way, but this is something which is obvious, as you'll see from the example. إِنَّ الْقَيْعَ نَاكِلٌ فَيَكُونُ الْبَيْعُ فَاسِدٌ مُفْسِدًا لِلْمُلْكِ. That because vomiting a mouthful breaks wudu, so therefore a bay'ul fasid will give the benefit of ownership. Now those are two different things. The wudu breaking, this is just random stuff. Wudu breaking because of vomiting a mouthful doesn't got nothing to do with bay'ul fasid, making you the owner of the goods that you bought. Why? Because they derive from different usul. So the ulama will say, no, the one doesn't result in the other. The one doesn't necessitate the other. Why? Because this belongs in Nakaya and Nakin belongs to a different category of usul, and that's taken from the Quran or from the Hadith. And Bayul Fasi belongs to a different class of usul. Those two things don't go together. You can't say because one is like this, the other one is like that also. Okay, that doesn't make sense. You follow?
Sure.
لعدم القول بالفصل, because again here, nobody has said otherwise. Nobody has disagreed with that. أو يكون موجب أمد قود لعدم القول بالفصل, or that it is killing a person by intention, murdering a person intentionally, or result in qawd. Qawd means qisas. Understand? So these three masal got nothing to do with one another. The breaking of the wudu, the vomiting a mouthful, a person becoming the owner of the cuisine by al-fasid, and a person murdering a person will have a death penalty instituted against him. These three masal don't have anything in common with each other. So they're not. So you can't say because one is like this, the other one is like that. It got nothing to do with it. And again, this is obvious. As I just said, it's just three random aside, because they're not connected to each other. Okay? The other will call it first. So like I said, this is I don't know, الله أعلم. وبمثل هذا القيء خير ناقض فيكون المس ناقضا وهذا ليس بحجة. And similarly, if a person says that vomiting a mouthful doesn't break wudu, so therefore touching a woman also doesn't break wudu. Again, these are two different masai. The one doesn't have anything to do with the other. Vomiting a mouthful is something which is ما خرج من غير سبيلين. Understand? And Masul Mara also got nothing to do with it. It got nothing to do with it. So you can't say because one is like this, the other one is like that. They come from two different principles, two different usul. وهذا ليس حجة. Therefore, this is not a hujjah. You can't present this as a proof. Or because vomiting doesn't break wudu, but touching a woman also doesn't break wudu. Why? Got nothing to do with each other. There's nothing in common between the two. You follow?
Yeah.
لأن صحة الفرع وإن دلت على صحة أصله ولكن لا توجب صحة أصل أخرى. Why? Because the correctness of a secondary masala, even though it indicates towards the correctness of the usul from which it is derived. However, it cannot become a means of another usul being proven correct. Understand? Because one usul is correct, you can't say that because this one usul of ours is correct, so therefore all the others are also correct. That's not necessary. Okay? حتى تفرد عليها المسألة الأخرى. Therefore, resulting in you being able to expect something else from the same as from the second also from the second principle. Understood?
Yeah.
So in short, what it means that just because one principle is correct doesn't necessarily mean that the other principle from which you are deriving other masal is also correct. You can't use it as a proof that listen here, I was right here, so I must be right there also. No, it doesn't work like that. Each masal will be studied individually, and it's possible that just because you are correct in one doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be correct in the other. Okay, so you can't use one asal to derive to come to a proof with regards to the second masala and the third masala, which got nothing to do with it asal. You follow?
Sure.
Okay, so that brings an end to that particular chapter. Now, so the Babul Ijma is done now. Because we're going into Kitab al-Qiyas, it brings another chapter. This can almost be like a muqaddimah or muqaddama, like a preface, a forward to the coming chapter, which is Babul Qiyas. And that is, what is the duties and the responsibilities of a mujtahid? Faslun al-wajib al-mujtahid. A chapter, what is the compulsory duty upon the mujtahid? So this is just some basic principles or laws, or you can say etiquettes maybe, of how a mujtahid would work. But it's not comprehensive, not everything. Just a very basic outline, very, very basic outline of how a mujtahid would approach the four sources of Sharia and how he would go about making ijtihad, okay, or making qiyas. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is more like a prologue to the coming chapter, rather than being part of Babul Ijma. Babul Ijma is done. Understood?
Yeah.
الواجب على المجتهد طلب حكم الحادثة من كتاب الله تعالى. So the first wajib, the first duty and responsibility upon the mujtahid is to look for the ruling of a haditha. What is a haditha? Haditha is a new matter which was not ruled upon before. Something arose in your era, in your time, that masala or that particular incident, that precedent we call it, that precedent was not found before. So it's something new which didn't occur before in the previous generations. So now where will you go first? What will you do? How will you approach this? So regarding that, you first go to the Kitab Allah. I said you first go to the Book of Allah. Has the Quran in any way ruled upon this particular incident or this particular precedent anyway in the Quran? Okay, understood? ثم من سنة رسول الله. If you can't find it in the Quran, there's no clear nas in the Quran or indication in the Quran, then you go to the Sunnah. Has Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam maybe not said something with regards to this or something similar to this from which you can derive a ruling? Okay? بصريح النص أو دلالته, either explicitly or via indication على ما هو ذكره, على ما مر ذكره, upon that, in accordance to what we have mentioned before. So with regards to, this is referring to both Quran and Sunnah, okay? Different categories of words and so on and so forth. So in keeping all those things in mind, you go to the Quran and then you go to Sunnah. Keeping all those 4 or 5 categories of words in mind and so forth. Qalatul Nas, Iqtida'un Nas, and ibaratun nas, isharatun nas, all of those things. Okay?
sure.
Why? فإنه لا سبيل إلى العمل بالرأي مع إمكان العمل بالنص. Why? There is no excuse, no pathway, meaning there's no excuse to act upon your personal opinion with the possibility of making amal upon nas, the Quran, the prophetic text or the divine text. So if you got the ruling in Quran and Sunnah, why are you applying your qiyas? So now how do you have the right to put yourself ahead of Quran and Sunnah? That doesn't make sense. So therefore you must first go to Quran and then Sunnah. You can't jump to qiyas just because, oh, this wasn't found in the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So I don't think it will be in the Quran. I don't think, no, you can't work like that on that assumption. That particular incident itself might not have been found, but there might be indication in the Quran and Hadith, keeping in mind what the reality of it. For example, there weren't banks found. So how will we know what the ruling of banks is? So we know banks deal with riba. What is the ruling of riba? And there you'll find your answer to what from the Quran and Sunnah. So there you will know that what is the ruling with regards to dealing with banks. Understood?
Sure.
Just as a simple example, maybe oversimplified, but I'm just giving you an example. You can't say, oh, because this wasn't found in that time, so therefore I don't think it's in the Quran. No. You have to go to Quran and Sunnah. First of all, what this incident that took place, what is the masal that surrounded it? Connected to which bab is this masal, is this particular incident? This incident is connected to mu'amalat, mu'asharat, nikah, talaq, salat, wudu, what is it connected to? And once you connect it to something, okay, under which chapter in that particular bab is this connected to? Okay? And then you can go looking in the Quran and the Hadith. The Mujtahid will look into the Quran and Hadith to narrow it down and to refine it. Right. وَلِهَذَا إِذَا اشْتُبِهَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْقِبْلَةُ. Now, he goes on from here to say, after Quran and Sunnah, then you go to then you can go to Qiyas. And so you go to the Aqwal al-Sahaba, then you go to Qiyas. And then you also want to mention that if there's a difference, if there's an ikhtilaf between an apparent contradiction between the Quran and Sunnah, apparent, between Quran and Quran or Quran and Sunnah, what do you do then to resolve that apparent contradiction? Because there is no contradiction. This is our short-sightedness that we see a contradiction. Otherwise, there's no contradiction in the ayat of the Quran and in the Sunnah, okay? But in between, he's giving examples of each from fiqh to show that where did we get this? That if you must first go to Quran and Sunnah and so forth. So he says, وَلِهَذَا إِذَا اشْتُبِهَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْقِبْلَةُ فَأَخْبَرَ وَاحِدٌ أَنَّهَا لَا يَجُوزُ لَهُ التَّحَرِّي. It is for this reason that this principle is derived from, that is why we have these particular masail. The principle comes from here. وَلِهَذَا إِذَا اشْتُبِهَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْقِبْلَةُ. If a person is confused, is in a foreign place, he doesn't know which way is Qibla, right? فَأَخْبَرَهُ وَاحِدٌ أَنَّهَا. But then somebody from that place informed him that no, this way is Qibla. Turn towards the side, that's the Qibla side. لا يجوز له التحري. It's not permissible for him to make tahari. But it's tahari is to apply your mind to exert your mind to the best of ability, to try and figure out through science or through intuition, which way would most likely Qibla be. Okay, I'm traveling in this direction, and normally in our country or in this country, Makkah will be in this particular direction. So I think it's this way. That's tahari. Understand? To apply your mind, exert your mind, and try to reach a conclusion. But now you have somebody telling you this khabar. It's just like how Quran and Sunnah is khabar. Quran and Sunnah is informing you of the masala. Why are you applying tahari? Why are you making qiyas? You follow. So just
Sure.
like how it's not permissible to make tahari when somebody is telling you exactly where the qibla is, in the same way, you can't make qiyas when the Quran and Sunnah is telling you what the masala is. Understood?
Sure.
So you're just using these masala to show you where the asal is coming from, where this qaida is coming from, where this principle is coming from. ولو وجد ماء فأخبره عدل أنه نجس لا يجوز له التمادي به ويتيمم. Similarly, if a person finds water and an upright righteous person informs him, no, don't use this water is najis. And again, it's not permissible for him to make wudu with that water. You can't say, but I don't see anything wrong with it. What's wrong with the water? It's not smelling, the color is fine. They seem also fine. Where's this guy coming from? No. He informs the water is najis. He'll know better. So you don't use the water, you make tayammum. Okay? And again, same thing. You got a khabar. You can't apply your reasoning then in the face of khabar. Okay?
Sure.
ولا اعتبار أن العمل بالرأي دون العمل بالنص كنا. And upon this consideration that acting upon your own opinion is less than acting upon nas. It's inferior to acting upon nas because Allah knows better and He knows better. So based upon this principle, we will say, إن الشبهة بالمحل أقوى من الشبهة في الظن. That if there is any shubha, any doubt in the masala, mahal yawm min masala, if there's any doubt in the masala, in the nusus, then that is stronger than any doubt coming from your own opinion. And a doubt in the nusus will overrule any doubt which you might have in your logic, in your ijtihad. Okay?
Yeah.
Sorry. Any doubt in the masala or in the source of the masala is stronger than a doubt which is based upon your ijtihad. Okay? حتى سقط اعتبار الظن العام في الفصل الأول. And therefore, the opinion or the consideration of a person's ijtihad will fall away, will become invalid in the first masala. Right? For example, ما إذا وطئ جارية ابنه لا يحد. That is why if a person, a father, was to have relationships with his son's concubine, the father will not get the had of zina. Doesn't belong to him, belongs to his son. You can't have intercourse with intercourse with somebody else's concubine because it doesn't belong to you. One of the conditions for which intercourse with the concubine makes it permissible is ownership. Understand? So if the father does this with his son's slave or concubine, the haddu zina won't apply. وَإِنْ قَالَ, even though he says, عَلِمْتُ أَنَّا عَلَيْهَا حَرَامٌ, that I know or I knew that she was haram upon me. Even if he says that, still no had will apply. Why? Because we have a hadith. This is a mahal. We have a hadith which says that you, whatever you own belongs to your father. Understood? So this hadith has created a shibr, has created a doubt in ownership. Does the father have some share of ownership in his slave girl or not? Because it belongs to his son, and whatever belongs to his son belongs to him. You follow? So because there is a slight gray area there, we could say, in our minds, so we will forego the had because we did before. Al-hudud tandari'u bi-shubahat. The hudud will be foregone, will become invalid because of any doubt creeping in, even if it's 1%. You follow? So because of, even though he says, I knew, your knowing got nothing to do with it. Right? The shubha which comes into the mahal is stronger than your dhan.
Sure.
Follow?
Sure.
What you were saying?
Now I'm saying, so basically you can't make any assumptions with regard to it. You can't make make qiyas on it. You just have to take the hadith. Yeah.
You just have to take that. Yeah. In this case, we just have to take practice upon the hadith. Because of the hadith, okay, he has done something which necessitates had. And you've got the hadith on the one side there, so that's creating a bit of a gray area. So even though he's admitting guilt, we still can't practice upon it. We still can't implement the had because of that hadith. So then nusus will take precedence over his punishment. Okay?
Sure.
Why? Because we always will place nusus higher than our own ijtihad. Irrespective of whether our ijtihad says yes or no. Okay?
True.
وَيَثْبُتُ النَّسَبُ الْوَلَدْ مِنْهُ, and we will establish lineage of any child born from the concubine to the father, not to the son. Why? And he is saying لأن شبهة الملك له تثبت بالنص بمال الابن, because the doubt with regards to ownership is established by means of nas, or hadith, in the wealth of the son. Okay?
Sure.
قال عليه الصلاة والسلام أنت ومالك لأبيك أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم فسكت اعتبار ظني في الحل والحرمة في ذلك. So therefore his ظن, his opinion, and same with regards to permissibility and impermissibility in that matter is invalid. Nas has spoken, and the Quran and Hadith has spoken. We don't care what you say. Okay?
Sure.
ولو أتي opposite way ولو أتي الابن جارية أبيه يعتبر ظنه في الحل والحرمة. If the son has to do this to the slave girl, the bondwoman, the concubine of his father, then his dhan, his qiyas, his opinion in that matter will be counted, whether he considered it to be permissible or in the haram. Both will be considered. Why? Because here we don't have any nas. So because we don't have any nas here, we was asking, why did you do that? If he says, no, I knew she was not permissible, then we will implement the had. You knew you were doing wrong and you still did it. Understand? حتى لو قال ظننت أن علي حرام يجب الحد. Therefore, if he was to say that I knew that she was haram upon me, because now he's making i'tiraf, he's admitting guilt. So therefore, the had will become compulsory. ولو قال, if he says ظننت أن علي حلال, and if he says no, I thought it's halal because my father's stuff, and I use my father's stuff freely, so I thought, okay, she also uses my father's stuff, must be permissible for me also to use. But because he's not opposing nas, he came to his own logical conclusion. He's not opposing any nas. So therefore, based upon that, we will say, لا يجب الحد. It will not be, the had will not become compulsory against him. لأن شبهة الملك في مال الأب لم يثبت له بالنص. Why? Because any doubt in the ownership of the father's wealth is not established for the son via nas. فاعتبر رأيه, so his opinion, of the son's opinion, will be considered. ولا يثبت النسب الولد, and any child born of the woman from that relationship, the lineage will not be established to the son. Why need da'aw, even though he claims this is my son? Okay?
Sure. So,
now he's got a short here.
So this lineage will be given to who then?
To the father.
To the father.
The father's slave, so it's easier. Okay?
Sure.
Now, okay, so that's the end of that. Now he's just going to discuss, okay, what if the mujtahid's got two outwardly contradictory proofs? Either the Quran or Quran Sunnah or something like that. And then what does he do? So that will be discussed briefly, then to bring this chapter to an end as well. Okay, so like I say, very, very brief sketch, outline really, of how to deal with the nusus, or how Mujtahid will go about dealing with the nusus. Okay?
Sure.
Okay, so the time is up now, 3:30. We'll stop here, inshallah. Hopefully we can complete next week. بإذن الله تعالى ومني وفضلي وكرمي. الحمد لله رب العالمين. Inshallah, day of Jummah as well. Surah Al-Kahf, lots of salawat upon Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, dua for yourself, for your families, for your asatidha, all Ummah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, especially all the trouble spots as well, inshallah. Ramadan is coming up as well. So inshallah, it's good preparation also for coming Ramadan and Laylatul Bara next week also, inshallah. They keep me, if you remember, and keep me in your du'as as well, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay. سبحان الله بحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.